Sarcoma is a form of cancer. It can affect different types of tissue. Soft tissue sarcomas affect tissues connecting, supporting, or surrounding any of the body's systems. To tell us more, we have Professor Michael Herbst, who is a health specialist at CANSA, Cancer South Africa. Good morning, Professor, and thank you for joining me.
Good morning to you and to all your viewers.
Right, Professor, why is a sarcoma regarded as the forgotten cancer?
Well, it is, let me first tell you what cancer is. I think we've got to start there and then see how sarcoma fits into the picture. Cancer is a very serious disease, we all know that. And my first message is cancer is not necessarily a death sentence, because most people believe if you're diagnosed with cancer, you're going to die. And maybe that was the case years and years ago, but science has really advanced to such an extent that most cancers are treated and many people are cured of this. Now, there are different types of cancer, but something can be called cancer only if it qualifies on three different criteria. First of all, there must be uncontrolled and just a wild multiplication of cells. The cells multiply and they just keep on multiplying and they don't stop multiplying. So when that happens, of course, it forms a big lump or a tumor that we call it in medical terminology. But there's another criteria that's important before something can be called a cancer, and that is it has the ability to infiltrate tissue immediately around it. But apart from it being able to infiltrate tissue around it, it can also spread from one part of the body to a totally different part. For instance, somebody who is diagnosed with prostate cancer, the cancer can spread to the lungs, it can spread to the brain, it can spread to the liver, it can spread to the bones of the body. So those are the three things. But then cancer is divided into 5 major groups. The first one is carcinoma, and that is what we normally refer to as cancer. Then there's sarcoma, what we're going to talk about today. There's myeloma and leukemia and lymphoma. Those are the 5 main groups of cancer. And that is what sarcoma is. And as you mentioned in your introduction, sarcoma can happen in practically any tissue in the body, but primarily it occurs in the bones and soft tissue of the body.
All right. Is there a known cause for sarcoma?
No, we don't have a specific cause for sarcoma, although we are aware of the fact that there are many things that can occur in the environment especially, and as well as our lifestyle. These will include things like smoking, drinking alcohol, getting into contact with certain chemicals, then also heavy metals like lead and nickel, etc. And then eating too much red processed meats, because the processed meats are preserved with nitrates and nitrites, and these are known cancer-causing chemicals. I've already mentioned alcohol as one of the causes, because alcohol is a known cancer-causing chemical. Then we also have smoking of tobacco. And we must remember that most people, when they hear tobacco, they only think of cancer of the lung. But tobacco is responsible for more than just lung cancer. It can be linked to at least 9 different forms of cancer, of which sarcoma is one of the different types of cancer. So there are many things that in the environment that can lead to it. Then there's also, of course, still the genetic factor, that certain cancers seem to occur in certain families. But that's only a minority of cancers are linked to genetics. So those are basically some of the causes that we know of sarcoma.
All right, now, what are the signs and symptoms that we should be aware of?
Oh, yes. If we look at the characteristics, and that's why I started there, because the same
Mhm.
characteristics that I mentioned for cancer as the overall disease applies to sarcoma as well. There's an
Mhm.
abnormal multiplication of cells. So, what happens when cells just keep on multiplying? They form a lump. So, in sarcoma, yes, we can find a lump appearing somewhere in the body, depending on where the sarcoma is. And then we also said it can infiltrate tissue around it. If it infiltrates tissue around it and it keeps on getting bigger in size, that tumor that is develops can cause pressure on other organs in the body and make them to become painful and sensitive. It can also cause pressure on nerves, and it can cause pain and discomfort by causing pressure on the nerves. Then it can also move to other parts of the body. And again, then we can get aches and pains appearing somewhere else in the body that is being affected by the sarcoma. So, sarcoma is then one of five main groups of cancer, but it is a type of cancer and it is treated very much like cancer, but mostly soft tissue and the bony structures of the body.
All right, Professor, do stay with us. We're going to take a quick break and we'll continue thereafter.
Certainly.
The combined dam levels for the Port Elizabeth area is at a shocking 11%. 1 July is day zero for the Kucha Dam, resulting in dry taps for hundreds of families in the surrounding areas of Port Elizabeth. Help us strategize. Support our water drive in the Eastern Cape region of South Africa. Donate your lilla towards the erecting of JoJo tanks in impoverished areas and for the vehicles to deliver water in areas of need. Donate to the Alfida Foundation. Visit our website at www.alfida.co.za or contact us at 041 484 1288.
Looking to get your kick? Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiba Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes, and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the taste with kick.
This year, share your Kurbani with some of the world's neediest communities. The Al Imdad Foundation's Canned Kurbani program allows you to provide a ready-to-eat, high-protein product to Syrian, Palestinian, and Rohingya refugees. For just 2,100 Rand, the Al Imdad Foundation will slaughter, can, and distribute your Kurbani to some of the world's neediest refugee communities. Share your Kurbani today. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
These are the days of Eid. Make takbir wherever you are. These are the days of Eid. Allah.
Add a sprinkling of sparkles to your magical parties and special occasions with colorful party surprise and awesome helium balloons. Celebrate Eid al-Adha in style with our stunning range of decorations, disposable tableware, neat bags and tags, Ziploc and self-sealing bags, refuse bags, polystyrene and foil trays, pallet wrap, Icona wraps, bath and clear tape. Eid al-Adha essentials galore. Be sparkled by our wide range of baking ingredients, baking tools, and bakeware. Stunning edible cake decor for Eid al-Adha. Sprinkles and Sparkles Party Shop. You want it all. Open Monday to Sunday. Visit us at 431 Inanda Road, Harlock, Durban, South Africa. Call 031 577 0604. Follow us on Instagram at Sprink and Spark and Facebook at Sprinkles and Sparkles.
Sustain, sacrifice, share. This Eid al-Adha, donate your Qurbani through Africa Muslims Agency. We ensure that your Udhiyah Qurbani not only feeds the poor but creates sustainable incomes for local farmers, brings the practice of sacrifice to the villages and shares the spirit of Eid. Sponsor in South Africa for 2,400 Rand. Africa 1,500 Rand. Palestine 6,150 Rand. Syria 4,000 Rand. Donate online at africamuslimsagency.co.za or call 011-834-8685. Africa Muslims Agency, inspiring the spirit of giving.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media, humanitarian journalism.
Moenie hierheen weer dood dispuut. Ek gaan nou op kamera wees.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media. It is 11:20. We are talking about sarcoma, as July is Sarcoma Awareness Month, and sarcoma is a form of cancer that affects different types of tissue. And joining me is Professor Michael Herbst, a health specialist at CANSA, telling us more. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. Alternatively, you can send them to us on WhatsApp on 061-766-0355. Professor, thank you for staying with us. Let's move on. We spoke about the signs and the symptoms that we should be aware of and what sarcoma actually is. Now, who is at risk of developing sarcoma?
Well, you know, it being a specific type of the 5 groups of different cancers, and we know with cancer, it knows no boundaries. It doesn't respect age. It doesn't respect sex. It doesn't respect what population group we belong to. It doesn't respect whether you're rich or poor. So anybody runs the risk of developing cancer, and the same thing then applies to sarcoma. And I can tell you that there are at least 20 different types of sarcoma that have already been described. And it all depends on which tissue in the body is affected and which part of the body is affected. And that, of course, will also influence the signs and symptoms, because if the sarcoma happens in the hand, then, of course, the pain and the swelling and the discomfort will be in the hand. So those are all important things. But anybody runs the risk of developing sarcoma.
Mm-hmm. So, Professor, with these 20 types of sarcomas, how is it diagnosed, and how are they treated?
Well, you know, like any other cancer, again, we can diagnose it with a proper medical examination that is done. Then also we try and get a history of when it started, how it started, what were the first signs and symptoms, etc. That's all very, very important things that we need to know of. Then there are specific tests that we can do. There are different scans that one can do, whether it is an X-ray, whether it's a CT scan, whether it's an MRI scan, and we can then see inside the tissue what is happening there, and that assists also in making a diagnosis. Then one of the very other important ways of diagnosing is to do a biopsy. Now, a biopsy is removing a tiny piece of tissue from the affected area, and it is sent to a laboratory where a specially trained pathologist will look at it under a microscope and will then confirm, because they can see exactly the changes that takes place in the cells that is part of the tissue that was forwarded to them. And each different type of sarcoma has its own very specific characteristics that the pathologist can see under the microscope. And those are the very important ways then that we can use to make a diagnosis of sarcoma, as we can of the other cancers as well.
Mm-hmm. So the treatment would be the same as the other cancers?
Again, you know, because sarcoma is one of 5 major groups of cancers, the 3 major ways in which sarcoma is treated, again, will include chemotherapy, it will include radiation therapy, and it will include surgery. And very often 2 or more of these will be used in combination. For instance, very often Chemotherapy may be given to help shrink the tumor so that it becomes smaller before it is excised, because that makes the effect of surgery so much less severe on the body. If you want to remove a big tumor like this, you've got to have major surgery to get it out. But if you could use chemotherapy to shrink the tumor, it makes the surgery smaller. The same thing if one can give radiation therapy to assist to shrink the tumor, it makes surgery also easier. But surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation therapy are the three main pillars of treatment of sarcoma.
And what is the mortality rate for sarcoma patients?
Well, again, we must remember that each person is unique. We're not all the same. So it's difficult to say that there's one shoe that fits all. But there is some research that has been done on sarcoma. And of course, the earlier it is diagnosed, the earlier it can be treated. And that changes the whole picture of survival and of how long people, it takes them to be cured, and if they can be cured at all. If, of course, the sarcoma is neglected and it has extensively invaded many parts of the body, it makes it near impossible to really treat it effectively. And in cases like that, then palliative care may be the only thing where we try and make the person's life as comfortable and as pain-free as we possibly can. And this is the important thing. And that will be my main message that I will most probably repeat at the end of the interview. We've got to know our bodies, every single one of us. And we've got to know our body from the top of our head to the soles of our feet. And anything that is different today than it was last week or last month or last year, we should report that to a health professional so that it can be investigated. If there's all of a sudden a lump in your body that has never been there before, you cannot neglect it. It will be very irresponsible to neglect it. So the important thing is to report it to your healthcare professional so that it can be investigated. Special tests can be done, and we can find the cause, and we can make the proper diagnosis. And once the diagnosis is made, then treatment can be implemented. But the earlier treatment is implemented, the better chances of a cure and of really making life so much easier for a person diagnosed with a sarcoma.
Right, so Professor, July is Sarcoma Awareness Month, and that brings me back to the question I asked earlier: why is it regarded as the forgotten cancer?
Well, and it's such a clever question coming from you, because people only hear the word cancer. They hear the word leukemia. They hear the word lymphoma. These are the general cancers that it would seem that always gets the attention. And very few people really talk about sarcoma. And that is why it is called a forgotten cancer. Because even our National Cancer Registry, it has entry for a very few of the sarcomas, because they are really neglected and they don't get the attention that they should. I have a colleague in Europe, and he has started a foundation in Germany. And what he's spread his whole foundation, it's involved all over Europe. And he has a sarcoma foundation to try and get more people to be aware of sarcoma as one of the 5 major groups of cancer. And it would be wonderful if we could, in South Africa as well, start concentrating a little bit more and telling people that sarcoma is there. What is it, and what makes it a little bit different to an ordinary cancer that can affect any tissue or any part of the body, whereas sarcoma is mostly in the bones and soft tissue of the body. And the soft tissue will include the tendons, it will include the fatty tissue and things like that in the body.
Right, so Professor, thank you so much for your time and for sharing that information with us. And quickly, contact details if anyone would like some more information.
Thank you very much for having me on the program. People can visit the CANSA website. It is www.cansa, cansa.org.za. They can also phone the toll-free telephone line 0800 22 6622. And they can also, if they have access to the internet, they can send a question for assistance to info@cansa, cansa.org.za. And we also have, for people who really feel that they really need additional support, and when they have a family member or themselves diagnosed with sarcoma, they can also then contact any of the platforms that I've given you now and request an interview, and CANSA will get a qualified person to phone you back, a counselor, and so it costs you nothing, and we will phone you back and have a counseling session with you and explain it to you. And the counseling sessions are in 7 different South African languages. A wonderful service offered by the Cancer Association of South Africa.
That is indeed amazing, and I hope our listeners and viewers take advantage of that, especially if you do not know where to go, how to even start. Start by going to the CANSA website. Thank you so much once again, Professor. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much for having me, and stay healthy. We're still in the middle of COVID-19.
Thank you. Bye-bye. That was Professor Michael Herbst, health specialist at CANSA, and he was shedding some light on sarcoma, as July is Sarcoma Awareness Month. And it may be regarded as the forgotten cancer because it's not spoken about as much as the general cancers that we know and hear of, the leukemias, the prostate, the breast cancer, etc. And this is there, it's out there. People have it, some recover from it, some don't, but do make sure that you go out, especially if something does not feel right, if something feels off, if you have a swelling wherever, because this does affect tissues and it can affect any part of your body, including the bones, unlike with the breast cancer that only affects your breast, etc. And for more information, you can go to the CANSA website. It's www.cansa, that's cansa.org.za, and you can find some contact details over there, emails, or phone numbers, telephone numbers, and you can also request an interview with a cancer specialist to help you out over there. It is 11:31. You're listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media. We will be right back.